Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to our kind of getting into a good rhythm of a weekly podcast.
We are. My father is not,
Well,
but we are.
but we are.
Yes.
Yeah, well, the show must go on.
This show, yeah. Sometimes people let you down and they're not here.
Listen, we're not going down this route again, all right?
But-
Last time your dad wasn't here,
Yeah, that's true.
you may have said a few things
I
that
did.
got me
Man,
in trouble.
I
So,
should have thought about some things to say before
should
this.
have.
I didn't.
yeah, well, that's
I've
all
got
right.
This
nothing.
last year too. I think the same conversation started
It
off
was
last
probably
year.
with John here.
It could have been.
Wow.
Well, we got
Memories.
Yeah, we do have memories. Well, we've got Pastor John with us this week. He preached the message this past weekend, did a fantastic job. So good to have John joining us today for our sermon recap, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, good to be here.
Introduce yourself,
Yeah,
John.
tell us a little
Let
bit
them
about
know who
yourself.
you are.
My favorite color is orange. Yeah,
Is it really?
probably. I don't know.
John's a big Clemson fan, in
think-
case you
yeah.
didn't know.
Yeah,
Maybe that's why the orange
that's
comes
true.
into
a little
play.
subconscious coming
Yeah.
forward there.
Was it?
That's true.
Yeah,
John's representing Upward Students with his student ministry hat
yep.
that
You-
I don't
You
have
can purchase one of those.
one. You can?
Yeah, send me an email.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Everybody, send John an email with your shirt size and
That's
your hat
right.
size.
My email
and-
is mcraver@ucf.
No, don't send it to that email. Don't do it.
Well, John, you did a great job this weekend. We had graduation that was happening this weekend, honoring our graduates, as well as you share, man, a tremendous message coming out of Exodus 33. Is that right? Exodus 33. And so, man, just did a great job, man. Really heard so many great comments of. Man, just people just talking about how the message impacted them. I was still hearing comments yesterday. So, I mean, man, just a tremendous job. And, the idea there is that, hey, man, God impacted lives. And we saw hands go up for salvations again. So another great weekend. So you did an incredible job.
Appreciate it. It was fun to do.
Yeah.
I'm interested to know what made you pick that one, because if you don't for those of us that speak right now, it's like we kind of just get to pick whatever we want, right?
Yeah.
Like the doors open and just like, I think, was that way for you? Did you
Yeah,
just get
yeah.
to pick? Yeah. Just
Nope,
let me
we
make
gave
sure.
him that.
So, before I go down this question, but I'm interested in what made you pick Exodus and kind of go that direction.
Yeah, I think when you think of Exodus, when you think of Moses and this whole journey that the Israelites are on, a lot of people think of certain milestones. You think of the Red Sea. You think
Yep.
of the highlight moments, so to say, that people talk about. And so kind of just want to dive in where everything that's in the Bible that we always believe is intentional. Everything in there is a purpose. So kind of just did a little bit of a study of what's really in there that we're missing. What are we focusing so much on everything else that we're missing? Maybe a conversation, which is exactly what this is. So yeah, read that conversation. It was just completely different.
You obviously did a great job of kind of breaking down this idea between, us coming to God and asking Him for things, or being people who just, we got to find our way, feel like we got to work for God, and this idea of experiencing God's presence and the value in that, and just simply being with God. Talk to us a little bit about how this message impacted you. We're really big believers here that, as you're preparing and preaching a message, boy, it's got to impact the communicator first before it can impact anybody else. So talk to us about how this message impacted you personally.
So it was one of those messages where I was kind of preaching to myself for part of it. There's different parts of it that I feel like when I have great conversations with people coming up and talking about the message, how it impacted them, different parts hit different people, which is great. That part about I was kind of skipping to the end, but the part about where every no leads to a yes,
Yeah.
that was one that my wife and I we really are leaning into right now.
Yeah.
Just with everything going on, and you hear that no, and when that's a big no glaring at you, oh man, I was all over that one. That was all. I was like, God, you tell me no, I got to lean into this yes. You saying that, so yeah, that one was really impacting me personally. Just given that one was a little tough.
Yeah. You talked about this past weekend with the message, just the blessings that come from being individuals who are willing to step into and walk into this invitation of experiencing God's presence. The idea behind the story here about, God told Moses, you can go into the promised land now, but you're going to go without my presence. And Moses pushes back on that and says, I ain't going anywhere without your presence. So the blessings that come from experiencing God's presence, one of those was that we get to know God's heart. And man, that's pretty powerful when you start to thinking about the idea that you can experience and know, the depths of God's voice. So, man, talk to us a little bit about what it means to know God's heart.
Yeah, it's easy to know about someone. It's easy to know about God. I mean, we hear him every week. We hear about him every week here at Sunday. It's easy to know about someone. But when you truly take time to really know that relationship, to know him on an individual basis, it changes the relationship completely.
Yeah.
I think of when I came on staff here, I knew about the people that worked at church here. I knew about you. I knew about Andy. But when you come and you're around them a little bit more often, you get to know more about them. You enjoy it. You have that relationship that builds it. And so when you know him, you get to understand why, a little bit more about why things are happening. Now, does that mean you have an understanding on every little thing? No, not at all. But when you do know him, it creates just so much more of a deep relationship where you're able to just experience the goodness of God rather than just hearing about him through a book or by someone else.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Yeah, I thought it was a good analogy you gave with like how you and Taylor know each other so well, and kind of that's what kind of relationship that God wants us to have with him, where it goes beyond just, like you said, knowing about him or even purely just the things that he says, but it's almost like when you hear something, when you're really close with a friend and you hear that they've done something or something's happened to them, you can kind of instantly know their response or know like, hey, something else is going on here, or like maybe not everything's being shown in the public eye right now because you know them so well that your first response is just to lean back on that kind of relationship you have with them, and I thought that was a good analogy to put of how God wants us to know Him. But yeah,
He one of the other things you went into, which was probably one of my favorite parts of your message, was we get the opportunity to is it hear his voice or trust his voice? Hear his voice.
Yeah.
So you get an opportunity to kind of we can hear his voice when we experience his presence. It's one of the blessings that we get. And the illustration that you gave using Waze or maps, I guess your version was Waze.
Yeah, I think you used maps on the stage.
Did
but
you?
I'm more of a Waze guy.
easier to trigger the voice.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, there's that button you can have it repeat. That helped a little bit.
All right, John. So set the record straight.
Yeah.
When you were doing the illustration, did you know that Maps was going to not give you the next direction, or were you still trying to figure it out?
That was very much intentional.
Okay.
I knew that was going to be the case. You got to practice to make sure it lands well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I knew what buttons to click to have it repeat.
That would have been the well, forget about that illustration.
Yeah, never mind.
Well,
Put the
it
phone on the
technology
back
doesn't
pocket.
work again.
Yeah.
But man, I mean, that was just a very real thing that pretty much everybody uses their phone for maps, or to try to get from one destination to the next, and understanding the idea of before God gives you step 30, He's still waiting on you to be obedient and take step 1. And man, I thought that they just connected so well that hey, we can trust that voice right there. We don't have to worry. We can just keep our eyes on the road, and we can have our conversation with our spouse there, and just trust that voice that's coming through is going to lead us in the right direction.
Yeah, I'm very much an anxious driver, and so that was a real that illustration really hit well, because when I'm driving down the road, I am thinking about when I turn left here, I've got to make sure I hit this road, and GPS removes that, and the same thing with life. It's so many times we're focused and anxious about what's in the future, when if we just sit back and trust God will guide us here, just obey once, and He'll take care of the next one.
Yeah, you made a point, like if you knew everything that was going to happen in your life, like I think you said something like, oh, it's going to be really bad June 13th, but then it's going to be better the 17th, and then it's kind of going to be average for the next 2 weeks, and then something great's going to happen. If you knew every step, then it's like there would be no way to live your life. You would be constantly in worry of the bad things that were going to happen, and then the good things that were going to happen would have far less of an impact because you knew they were coming and you knew exactly what they were. So I thought that was a great way to think about it. I mean, it's like if you were watching a movie and you knew every step of the story along the entire way, then it becomes a far less interesting and impactful story because you know every part of the journey. And like what you said with the GPS thing, I mean, if you knew what it was going to take to get you where God was going to take you, if you knew everything that was going to be required immediately up front, then you might never start that journey. It could be a thing where you're just like paralyzed by the amount of work and the amount of just like blood, sweat, and tears that's going to go into something that you might just never start, which I thought was it was a great point. I think that'll stick with a lot of people afterwards. Like you think about like what they'll remember from each message. I think they'll remember that kind of illustration for a long time. But yeah,
it leads into your last point that you gave, which was trusting His timing. But the idea of that I can know God's heart, I can hear His voice, and as I'm taking those steps, whether I know what's coming around the next bend or not, it all kind of comes back into this thing of I'm gonna trust God during this journey. I'm gonna trust Him while I'm on this path. And if I knew everything that was coming, if I knew that on June 13th something bad was going to happen, if I knew on June 15th it was going to get better, there's no need for me to trust God in this.
Absolutely.
If I've already got all the answers, if God's already laid everything out for me, then where does my faith come into play? Where does my trust in what He's going to do for me and what He's got for me? Where does that come into play? And I guess at the same time, where does my obedience come into play? In that, if I already know how everything's going to play out, is there really any need for me to practice faith at that point in time?
Yeah, and if you know everything that's going to happen, you're going to miss out on so many because you're going to, in the small wins or the good days that are just a really good day, you're going to be so focused on the next big thing that happens that you're missing out on what He's doing right in front of you.
Yeah.
Or on the hard days when you learn stuff. When we go through hard times, it's God showing us and examining us and teaching us things. If we're just looking ahead to the next best thing in those struggles or in those trials, we're not going to learn anything. We're not going to have any kind of growth whatsoever. We're going through that for a purpose, and you've got to be in that moment to have that purpose.
When you mention trusting God's timing, what oftentimes hits into my head is that God doesn't work on my timetable. I want things now. I want things to happen right now, and I don't like waiting. I'm not a very patient individual, and oftentimes I feel like that God's just saying, "Hey, just walk with me. Let's enjoy this journey right now. Let's enjoy the time that we're on right now. Let's not just simply worry about trying to get to the next thing, or you getting the next thing, or you doing the next thing that you feel like you need to do or you need to get. Let's enjoy the time that's happening right now. Let's enjoy who I'm molding you into while we're getting to where we want to go." And man, I thought, golly. I hope everybody was able to kind of walk along with you as you brought forth into the New Testament kind of the two times that Moses was told no, and man, how that turned into a greater yes there at the Mount of Transfiguration.
It's crazy how our Bible is so intentionally put together, how it's full circle completely, and how there's never a story that's left unwritten or uncompleted. I think that's encouraging to us that we know our story is going to be completed. There is a purpose, but that walking through, seeing Moses having that fulfillment in the presence of Jesus Christ, man, changes things.
Yeah, that was really good.
We talk about it too. I'm reading through a lot of the Old Testament right now, just in my own devotional plan, and I talk about it with Becca, my wife, a lot. As like these stories, you got to remember, like they did not have access to the presence of God like we do, right? So, like we can pray. Bible talks to us, and Holy Spirit's with us all the time. And if he lives with us, if he lives in us, we have kind of access to that whenever we want in a very almost casual sense, right? And it's when Jesus died, the veil was torn of the Holy of Holies, signifying, that's everywhere now. But the people in the Old Testament, it was not like that. Now, they had some other incredible things that would happen. The Israelites were following God around within a physical pillar of fire. That was like the presence of God. But the presence that we have access to today is the same presence that they can only access potentially once a year, and they had to tie a rope around a high priest's ankle in case it was too much for him, and he died. So I thought about that question that kind of God poses to Moses, which you talked about. It's like, do you want the land or do you want my presence, as being even more impactful than we can even think about now. And even in another way, like Moses wouldn't have had access to the same amount of the presence of God that we do. So he was even willing to give that up for a smaller portion, maybe of the real presence of God. Now, again, the Old Testament people had they had more physical representations of God, which I think it's always easy for us to look back and be like, oh, wouldn't that be crazy if God was a physical pillar of fire? That'd be easy to follow him, but you face the same challenges. But I thought, looking at it through the lens of that, being like, these people did not have the same level of access to the presence of God as we do, made it even more impactful. He was willing to give it up for a smaller piece of the pie than we get. Which shows you how important it really is.
What do you think some of the Old Testament people would do if they got to just move forward? They get to be in our lives right now, and you get this access to God every day.
Yeah.
This is the relationship you can have.
The the other thing here is that you were able to bring forward that full circle moment for us for, Moses in Exodus, 33 all the way up until the New Testament, right? But when Moses heard, no, you can't see my face, you're not going to enter the promised land. He had no assurances of what was going to take place, later on, in what we would classify as the New Testament, right? He didn't get that. He didn't know that full circle moment was going to take place. There was a trust that, okay, not necessarily that this no is going to lead to it being a yes later on, but that the greater yes was going to be for his betterment, regardless of what the yes was, right? We know that now the yes ended up being, yes, you'll get to see the promised land. Yes, you'll get to see my glory. But he had no idea that his greater yes would be those two things. He just knew that the greater yes was going to be something that God would say, this is better for you.
That's good. Knowing that faith that he had to have to know the yes is coming. I don't know what it is. I don't know when it'll happen. I don't know what it'll look like, but I got to trust it's going to come. It's challenging.
Yeah. If the whole plan was revealed to Moses back then, how many years was this before the birth of Jesus?
Well, what even sense does this make?
Couple.
Yeah.
But even what sense would that make to Moses?
No, it's like,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like after you die.
Yeah, exactly. After you die and you either go to heaven or Abraham's bosom or whatever, and then I'm going to 1,000 years later or whatever. How many years later was it? We talked about what is it between the Old Testament and the New Testament? How many years is that silence? We talked
It's
about
400 years. It's
400 years.
Just
sorry.
that.
Yeah, just that period of it. So you talk about, I don't know, I'm not like a scholar on the dates or anything, but hey, 1,000 years later, I'm going to send my son and he's going to physically die on a cross. By the way, there's this thing called the Roman Empire that's going to come into power.
Which doesn't make any sense either, by the way.
He's going to die and descend into hell, and I guess you'll meet him there. And like that would have just put him to sleep, I think. So
that'd have been a bad pizza dream.
Yeah, yeah. It's just, and I don't claim to be a scholar on all the process of how all that went down and everything, but like that would have just never made any sense to him at all. Yeah.
And it's probably the case for us.
Yeah.
That if God were to reveal to us this long plan about, hey, I know I'm going to tell you no right now, but it's going to lead to a greater yes. And here's what that greater yes is going to be. Most of us would say, yeah, that's just a bad pizza dream right there.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. I don't even understand any of that right now. And it's not until, hey, God does some things and some things begin to transpire that we look back and say, yeah, here's the greater yes.
That's true for all of us, right?
Yep.
If we look at our life right now and you go back and tell your version of yourself 10 years ago that you would love your life and this is what your life's going to look like, we'd be like, that's not what I'm planning. That's not it at all. But
good.
We're here and we're loving it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Fantastic.
Good stuff.
Man, once again, great job this weekend. Really, really great message. We did a wonderful job. So yeah, well done.
Appreciate it.
Yep. So we took a 1 week break from Philippians, Joy from the Jail,
back.
and we're back in it this weekend. So look forward to seeing all of you. Thanks so much for being with us today. Anything lasting thoughts you guys want to share?
I think I'm good.
All right.
No more words of inspiration.
No more words of wisdom from Michael.
Tapped out for the day.
Okay. All right. Well,
let's just go home.
It's first thing in the morning, so I hope that's
gonna
not
be an
true.
issue for later. But
thanks for being with us today, guys, and we look forward to seeing you next week.